get all the way in an hour and a half, one day a week. The title of the sermon is The Faces of Love, and I'll talk about love throughout the year. And I already decided I wasn't going to talk about it title. Because what occurred to me last night, people took me out to see Nancy Griffith. And she had an LBJ button on her guitar, on her thing, and it just flashed back and forth throughout the night. And I cried when I first saw it. Because it was nice to hear somebody kind of on the edge of the mainstream, because there were lots of people I've never seen before at the Fox, and it's filled up. Looked like they come from out of the perimeter or all over North Georgia. She had a large following. And there were lots of us there, too. I saw a number of our congregations going. And she talked about the great society and getting greater, and that she was just out there politically with her statements. And that's what occurred to me is the revolution's already taken place. And we got it this morning. When I came in, I realized we get to listen to someone that's out there, an activist, that's out there doing their thing, and each of us are doing our things. And I thought, Friday night I saw Sharon Mathis has started the Existential Open Invitation Theater, and there's a good turnout, and I don't know what, I haven't checked yet, but Saturday night, and this is a readers group, and it was powerful. So I was here then, and then Saturday night, and then to come this morning, I could just listen to her sing all morning, because it's just that. You don't have to go to Washington or New York or Boston or San Francisco to get a particular kind of feeling. It's here each Sunday morning. The revolution's here. It's going on. And what it occurred to me is why there's all this other stuff you see on TV that seems to disconnect that. And why is it that Channel 19's going to where it's it's called, I call it the murder station, because it's one murder after the other on the evening news. I can't watch it anymore. There's nothing about anybody doing anything. They just go out and scare the daylights out of you. I mean, we're terrorized enough, and just constantly, that's 4 or 5 of those. I thought, if I look at that, I think, well, what's going on here? And then I realized a revolution is taking place. Look around us. It's taking place. All of us, we haven't stopped working. The president of our congregation gets an award for her moral, her outstanding, high.
For being a character actor.
For having a character. This is. And what this has to do with a lot of things is fundamentally part of John Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir's philosophy, a part that makes some people get nervous around us, and it's stated very explicitly, and I believe it. And I believe it adds a preciousness to the acts. We're talking about random acts of kindness, but I think it adds a preciousness to our lives, whether we have a button on, or whether we're marching or signing a petition, or whether we're forming groups of support to help those in our society that are in pain or have been hurt beyond repair. Whatever we're doing, John Paul Sartre said it very clearly, and Simone de Beauvoir says in more elaborate in her novels and essays. Fundamentally, what there goes on out there, and what's amazing, we do not collude on these services. I did not talk to the person saying I have not talked to Kathleen, but it's a lot like, for those of you who didn't get here earlier on time, which a lot of us don't, she told about somebody tossing $10 back into the ocean. And basically, well, you couldn't toss all of them, but the ones that got tossed back sure felt appreciated. And what I thought about, it made it clear exactly what I'm talking about, is that values, for me, and for many of us here, and there may be support depending on whether you believe in historical dialectic, or you believe in a God, or her, or him, or whatever. There may be support, but fundamentally, for most of us here, if someone touches us and helps us, it's primarily going to be another human being. There may be angels out there, or there may not. That's for whatever. But however angels operate or anything else operate, all my life, anything, if someone brings you a cup of cold water, it's a human being bringing that. And part of the harshness of existentialism has been is we say, if I want truthfulness in the world, I need to be truthful with the IRS as well as with other people in my life. I need to be truthful. If I want people to behave ethically and morally, or I want the world to be more humane, all I've got to do is when I go to a grocery store or when I go where people are working, and most all of us are working someplace, is for just a few seconds recognize the subjectivity and personhood of that person. I don't have to get into deep, intimate conversation, but when I walk around, to be able to make eye contact and see, because most of us here know a lot about being invisible. It's amazing. I thought I knew about being invisible. I mean, I know places where no one would come up and talk to me. But I felt like they'd see me because I wear all these bright clothes anyway. Where they talk to me or not. That's one of the compensations. If you're shy, you can wear bright clothes and they will see you. But they act like they don't. And what I'm talking about, rather than getting into all these other people, I thought each of us right here are making the world different by taking time out in our lives and listening to other people's concerns. I get so concerned at times because our services are not highly structured and no one's in trouble. There isn't. I mean, she knows. Some of y'all would be here think, oh, well, I'll have that illusion that there's somebody in trouble. There's a board who guides us. And I guide us and other people guide us, but there's nobody really in. I mean, try to find out who's running things. I came in, there were these little cards on there. I said, I wonder what those mean. I got one of them that means we're doing right a random act of kindness, and somebody picked it out and may give them another way to do it. This tie said, fundamentally, what love is about is if it's going to exist, it's being loved. And being loving, one of the places I've suddenly since, I don't know what's happening since December, the Bible's coming back to me, y'all. I'm not, it's just suddenly starting to come back to me. I don't know if I've really seen all the different things way back, not who I met when I came in the door, or what, but I remember there are things in the Bible that I really respect deeply, and the ancient wisdom, if you're reading any ancient material, has some kernels of truth in it. And one of the things is the book of James in the New Testament, which some of you may know about the book of James, some may not. If you do know about it, Martin Luther, who started the Reformation, said it was a book of struggle, because primarily the book of James is a book on ethics. And the book of James is where many of us who have followed various stages in our theological development is a book that says God is love. And how do you love God if you can't love the people around you? The book of James is a book that says, listen, you can talk about all the heathen and all the other people out there, whatever, but if you can't love the people around you, you're no different than anybody else. Or if you only love people that love you. Now that's just common sense. There's not a few of us that not agree. That's the easy thing. If I'm only friends with people and only do causes that just help me, and part of the preciousness of being in this congregation is that we do learn about the special celebrations of Stonewall or Martin Luther King, that when you are diverse, I must appreciate the richness of the cultures that I move in. Next week we're going to have a Susan B. Anthony service, and we have a wonderful experience that we'll be giving awards and doing all kinds of things. It's important that we understand, those of us that have been understand women's history. It's important that we understand Afro-American history. It's important that we begin to understand Spanish history, which is a part of our culture and it's evolving. And it's important that we understand historical dates around gay and lesbian events like Stonewall, that most of us here, and if you're around this time, that's the action. That's how we make it different. Somebody a long time ago wrote non-toleration. They didn't want to just be tolerated. I don't I want to be affirmed, seen, experienced, and appreciated. That's what I want, something more than that. And when I want it from other people, what I find the challenge for me is as I go around is to do it. And it's really something that's I'm a very shy person. It's been really hard for me to I realize just wherever you are, there are human beings waiting on us. And when I start responding to that person in the home store or the person in the antique store or the person in the mattress store, what have you, start just being present as a human being, we start to humanize a very alienated society. We do it. It makes a difference. And it's powerful. I'm talking about what it's like if somebody, you're doing a service, whether you're serving somebody food or whether you're teaching somebody, and a person comes up and says, I really got that, or I appreciate that. What it does to us all day long, you can make money back. Just meeting somebody in the parking lot and making eye contact, somebody's going over to Paris, sometimes just meeting a person for a few minutes, and somebody says, you just kind of check in. You don't necessarily tell them everything that's going on, but just to experience a human being. And you and I can do that. It's very, very critical for me not to become like what I set up as these stereotypes. Like the songwriter said, there's 10% of Republicans are lesbian, gay. 10% of Republicans are probably humanists, existentialists. 10% of the socialists are. And everybody, it gets not to engage in the same thing that's done, but to set up straw people. An act loving. Loving is, first of all, attending that we are dealing with a human being in front of us and being able to look and see. If it's hard to do that, you may want to practice a little bit. Because I don't know if you can appreciate your own inside. Love. There's probably, the more I talk with people, and this is something you can share with your friends, but I like to kind of give a little homework assignment here. We can't get it all done in the length of time I'm allotted, or I could be here till late afternoon, and of course, we'll be in here practicing. And I don't know how many of you all come back next week, even though we do serve food afterwards, and we've got lots of food. So if you get real hungry, you don't even have to wait to make it down to little 5.2. We've got chili, and we've got all kinds of good stuff out there. It's just an experience. What I know about and what is important is tell somebody what is love. What is love? There's an exercise that they used to do, say, do for 10 minutes without damaging any property. What you really want to do. That's also socially acceptable. What I'm asking you to kind of look into yourself. If somebody wants to really say, I cherish, you're just special to me, I love you, what do we do? What is it? We can't psych it out. I don't know. I can guess. But I don't know if I'm around somebody like it. But it's surprising. One of the things is check out around with your friends. What is love? And you'd be surprised at how often simple it is. But mostly is what I hear about when I listen to the radio, watch the TV and stuff, is that loving has to do with you and I being present to each other. And if you can be present to another, I think it means like, if I'm agitated inside, then I'm not going to listen. You're talking to me and I'm just and those of you around me know that when I'm obsessed with something else, you can talk to me. And my body's there, but my mind isn't, or my heart isn't. Being loving is just being present. That's the beginning of it. And the other part is to find out why it is the people that we care so much about in our community, what it is they need or want. And it's all right to ask. Some of you have grown up thinking that part of love is that if you really love somebody or you really be friends, you will automatically know what they need. That's a terrible burden to carry. We don't automatically know what anybody needs. I just don't know. And I have permission to ask. Some people say, well, how do I be kind to somebody? I say, well, ask. Do they want you to bring food? Do they want flowers? Do they want a Coca-Cola or Pepsi-Cola or a Sprite? I mean, I don't care what brand they want. I ain't got to impose. Do they want no caffeine or do they want whatever. You can't know this. It's all right to ask. Adrian Rich says we're kind of thrown in here without any roadmaps, without anything, and we just kind of have to figure it out. I mean, just think about going down, being picked up right now. I think about being picked up right now and being put in LA, Los Angeles, not Lower Alpharetta. Be put in Los Angeles and not know, have any maps or anything, and be told I'm going to an Italian restaurant someplace. You could wander around for days, for weeks, and maybe not get there. This is the way we've come into the world, and this is pure existentialism. Sartre just says we're just kind of thrown out there. Some of us come in more gently than others, depending on how much our mothers and fathers or mothers or whatever fathers decide they're going to be out, whether they're going to bring us into a safe place or bring us to wonder where they slapped us on the rear end and stuck us in an isolate for 2 or 3 weeks till we got well enough to be touched by human beings, what have you. But we come into this world, and it's a mystery, and it's all right. Part of what talking about loving is to be able to talk about it. It's like respecting. To talk about what it feels respectful, it's varied. Each of us have different things that feel respectful and special. I fundamentally feel like that. I'm questioning everything that I was born with. Part of one of the joys I just keep wanting to get older is that each decade brings awareness. For those of you who are getting a little gray in here, it's different. It's wonderful. It's real different to be what I see now than what I saw 20 years ago. It's really amazing. And part of what stays consistent is if you and I don't do it, if you don't pick up your cup, there is not anybody else around you to do that. Basically, what you and I don't do don't get done. Or somebody's doing something somewhere. They're being out in places and willing to give their time and energy to be able to love. Loving has lots of things. Some people get worried about being selfish. Because another part of the thing is I do believe people love you the way they love themselves. That's the biggest thing I've learned in my mid-50s. People treat me the way they treat themselves. And the difficulty is a lot of us don't treat ourselves very well, so those around us really get treated. But we really do. I used to think, oh, well, they're being mean to me, or they're doing this to me. If a person don't respect their own mind or their own heart, then they don't know how to respect yours. If you're not listening to that voice inside, or that inner space, you're not finding a place to get there and find out what is being said inside. What is it that's being said to you inside? Sometimes I know one of the things is what's being said is like, where do I get joy from? And where I get joy from is not protesting. I've been protesting since I was a little kid. I protested in the 6th grade for the first formal protest about not being able to, down in Florida, not being able to talk quietly in the lunch line. We stood out for an hour, and I wrote about democracy. And in democracy, it seemed like you could be able to talk in the lunch line if you talk quietly. And I had to write 1,000 times. I will not walk in 100 times. I had to write, I will not walk in the lunch line. That was my punishment, to write an essay about that. Because the teacher really asked me to write an essay about why I should not talk in the lunch line. And you all know about writing those other essays on the other side of that. I love protesting. And why I love it is it reminds me that warm bodies often make a difference. Some people talk about witness. I think often I go places and I'm there as just a witness. If you go to state capitol, it's something about the power of human beings. It's just tremendous. And it doesn't have to be hundreds of thousands. A third person makes a witness. If you go down to the Georgia legislature, we go down there, Dean had a little protest down there. There were 13 or 14 of us giving something back to the Georgia legislature. It didn't matter whether there's 1,000 or witnessing that something happened. I'm not willing to take it. And I don't have to have all the answers. But I am in protest about what's going on. And at the same time, I want to tell you, I do believe that there's a revolution happening. And it's already taking place. I've gotten caught in a very depressive place. And even medication didn't help me. But what did help me is seeing the arts. It's changing already. There is something going on that you cannot put back. All this, you can't put it back in the closet. You can't hide it away. There's not enough harmonians to cover all of us. They can't get rid of us. We've been around here. Individuality is going to arise, and we're not going to get rid of subjectivity just because people are trying to treat us as objects. We are more than our computers or our bank accounts or all that stuff. This is already happening. It happens as we get our voices through the arts, through singing. We get all kinds of things. It's something powerful moving. I was kind of overwhelmed, and I thought, no, if I really believe that in the dialectic, which I happen to believe in, because it's about as convenient a method as any other to believe in, and I don't have much emotional package with the dialectic, because none of my parents never talked about it when they were bringing me up in North Florida. They never talked about the dialectic, so I have neutral feelings about the dialectic. We all know how historic the dialectic is moving in history from conservative to progressive, or from light to darkness, or from anything you want it to be. It's going on, and I thought, well, we had swung about as far as we could. And then what I realized is, it's marvelous. Things are happening. It's different. The world is different from 1955, 1956, 1957. The world is different. And we know it's still a lot of tragedy going on. What happened in Russia just wiped out the war. But the war is on its last legs. I really believe the military, they were showing on Russian television as they were bombing this the cost of the bombers. And they're in a severe economic crisis. They'd say, this bomber cost $50 million, and this sortie cost $100 million to send that in. Suddenly they were beginning to think about not so much money, but resources. And even Eisenhower, I can't believe Eisenhower wasn't one of the brightest presidents we've had, but he was our president, for some of y'all weren't born then. But even Eisenhower recognized this military complex, how much we've been militarized. And this is part of why part of talking about loving is the values we have. Like, I'm trying to get rid of the military metaphors in all my things. I'm tired of fighting and having a war on poverty. I don't want to have a war against heart disease, and I don't want to do those kinds of things. I think it's time, and part of the work it takes, when you recognize you're creating values, is I have to go through and rethink, can I use another metaphor for this? The military is just down in our cells. How we struggle, fight, battle, all those kinds of things that we build into our language system. Eisenhower said we better look out for the military-industrial complex. And I believe he knew something about that. He is a military person. And if we want to get demilitarized, we've got to start thinking in our own lives. When you start thinking about comparing something to a war, then you keep that language going. If you find out there's lots of metaphors, there's lots of ways we can move into the world. You can look at one of the traditional things is compare a rowboat to a canoe. A rowboat was invented in New England, that's why I'm going to assume it's probably invented in England or someplace. But you've got to work for yourself. You get in a rowboat and you just have 11 years working. You get in a canoe and you just... Now, which metaphor do you want to use? Something that cuts into the water and we have to work hard at, and there's all kinds of problems with the design of it, or something that people hollow out of the tree and they can just float, and they can go upstream or downstream, and they don't wear themselves out. It's amazing, too often when I think of other kinds of metaphors, if I think about metaphors of discussion, or if I think about metaphors of negotiation, it actually takes less energy. And we're not left exhausted when we're finished with that. I believe believe that whatever love in the world is created that I experience, in terms of who is the instrument, is brought by instrument. I believe that. And I believe by me. And I think that makes us very, very powerful creatures. We're very powerful, you all. It makes a difference how our sisters and brothers treat us. And you can make a difference in this world. You can. It is. And it's all political. Everything is political. You make a difference. And if you want to be more loving, be that way. And we're going to actually have some ways that you kind of be doing it. And I like to do random acts of kindness. It's amazing. It's amazing just to drive along and let people get in on drive. To be generous. No, I mean to be really generous out there. People blow their horns at you and all that. But to let your sister embrace somebody's trying to get out. Just little ways like that. You make it less frantic and just by doing those kind of things. And then there's things individuals can't do, and that's why we need music and arts and singing, and we need to gather in large gatherings when that's necessary. Next week we got a very special Susan B. Anthony service, the Amazon Salon. We thought it was Amazon Swans. That's why our board meetings are so wonderful, you all. You need to come to them. They're getting better and better. For a while we were thinking it was Amazon Swans. We thought that's kind of a paradox or oxymoron or something. But it's that Amazon Salon. Where is Liz here? Liz, you ready for the children? Huh? Yeah, we're ready. Thank you very much. We've got a very special service, and we've got lots of food for every